On December 5th, 2025, a disturbing video surfaced on social media, originally posted on TikTok, showing a female employee of a Cinnabon store in Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, verbally abusing a customer and her husband. According to the video and reports, the couple in question was a Black Somali Muslim couple. The altercation reportedly began over something trivial. The customer asked for additional caramel on her cinnamon roll, stating the caramel portion originally served was insufficient. In response, the employee allegedly made derogatory remarks, mocking the woman's hijab, referring to it as a witchcraft bandana. As the customer began recording the encounter, the worker's behavior escalated. She hurled racial slurs, including the N-word, at the couple. At one point, she reportedly said, "I am racist, and I'll say it to the whole entire world." She also made obscene gestures and used profane, demeaning language. The video quickly went viral. In the face of mounting public outrage, the store's franchise owner and the parent brand responded. The employee was, quote, immediately terminated. In a public statement, Cinnabon said the individual's actions were unacceptable and in no way reflect the values of Cinnabon, our franchisees, or the welcoming environment we expect for every guest and team member. Thus ended, at least from an employer standpoint, what many consider a textbook example of racism, bigotry, and customer service failure. But the story didn't end with a job termination. As often happens in the digital age, social media amplified the fallout in unpredictable ways. On one hand, many expressed solidarity with the victims. A campaign was launched to support the Somali couple, highlighting not only the financial but also the emotional toll, the trauma of being publicly humiliated and targeted simply for their race and religion. On the other hand, a campaign also emerged to support the fired employee. A crowdfunding page was set up on a platform popular among certain Christian and conservative donors. According to several reports, that fundraiser drew tens of thousands of dollars within a short span time. That reaction, fundraising to help someone who publicly admitted to being racist and insulted a hijab-wearing woman, sparked even more outrage. Many saw it as a disturbing signal that for some segment of the population, racism is defensible, even fundable. As one commenter on Reddit put it about a similar case, such fundraisers expose how comfortable some people now are with racism. The broad public reaction, scorn, condemnation, outrage, also triggered conversations about systemic racism, Islamophobia, hate in everyday spaces, and how companies should be held accountable when their workers act on those prejudices. At first glance, this might seem like one more headline, a regrettable but isolated incident. But it matters for several deeper reasons, which reflect ongoing social and cultural fault lines. Number one, racism and Islamophobia in everyday life. The fact that the target was a Somali Muslim woman wearing a hijab underscores, yet again, how racism intersects with religious prejudice and xenophobia. This wasn't simply an insult over a cinnamon roll. It was a pointed attack on identity, race, and religion. The mocking of the hijab, calling it a witchcraft bandana, reveals how dreadfully ignorance and bigotry can translate into violence, even in the most everyday spaces. The mall, a food counter, a routine purchase. For many immigrants and Muslims living in the U.S., this kind of incident isn't a shock. It's a deeply familiar danger, but the fact it happened so brazenly, so publicly, and so casually speaks volumes about the lingering permissiveness of hate-based behavior in certain pockets of society. Number two, the power and danger of social media documentation. That the outburst was caught on video and shared on TikTok is critical. Without that recording, there would, quite possibly, be no accountability, no public reckoning, no termination. The digital camera and the internet served as witness, jury, and, to an extent, judge. In that sense, social media continues to be one of the few mechanisms left for ordinary people to fight injustice, especially when the institutions around them fail. It puts pressure on corporations, shines a spotlight on prejudice, and can force swift consequences when documented proof collides with public outrage. At the same time, this also raises complicated questions. What kind of society does this when it relies on bystander cell phone videos to hold hate accountable? What about those whose harassment or discrimination goes unrecorded, or whose attackers aren't captured on video? The incident shows both the power and the tragic limitations of social media era accountability. Number 3, corporate responsibility and public standards. By terminating the employee immediately and issuing a public condemnation, the brand, at least publicly, responded appropriately. That response matters. It signals to the public, to customers, and to minority communities that such behavior won't be tolerated. But it also raises broader questions. Was this a one-off or part of a pattern? Did management know anything about this employee's past behavior? Is there a hiring or training failure? Choosing to fire the employee was the minimum expected response. But going forward, corporations like Cinnabon should do more. Implement regular sensitivity and anti-bias training, monitor workplace behavior, ensure safe and respectful service for all customers, and create mechanisms for effective reporting and accountability. Number 4, the polarized public reaction. Perhaps the most troubling dimension is the reaction from some corners of society. The fact that tens of thousands of dollars were donated to support the fired employee, essentially rewarding racism, is alarming. It illustrates how polarized, fractured, and morally conflicted public opinion remains on issues of race, immigration, and religion. One commenter on Reddit summarized it bluntly. She is not unmedicated. That's how they are, mask off. Another noted with disgust how racism pays, at least financially, in some parts of the internet. This willingness to support a person who openly insults, degrades, and verbally attacks a minority couple shows that for some, hate is not a fringe instinct, it's a cause. And that normalization of hate, especially under the guise of economic or ideological support, is perhaps more dangerous than individual incidents. This incident with the Cinnabon employee is not just about one person's racism. It's a microcosm, a snapshot of broader social tensions, fault lines, and moral choices. Here are some takeaways. Accountability matters, and public pressure still works. Without that video, there would likely be no consequences. Public outcry forced a response. That's the good. The internet can amplify justice, not just drama. But systemic solutions are needed. One firing is not enough. Companies must proactively combat racism and Islamophobia within their workforce. They must create safer, more inclusive environments and ensure that prejudice doesn't sneak in through cracks of ignorance or apathy. We must examine how hate gets normalized and monetized. The fact that individuals raise money to support someone for a racist outburst is not just sad, it's dangerous. It reveals a segment of society that's not just indifferent to hatred, but actively supportive of it. Combating that requires social, institutional, and perhaps legal pressure. Minority communities must feel safe, even simply buying food. For Black, Muslim, immigrant, or otherwise marginalized customers, this episode is a reminder: public spaces are not always safe. The question is, how can they be made safer? Through enforcement, awareness, empathy, and cultural change. We must continue to fight ignorance with truth and humanity. Racism thrives in ignorance and fear. When a worker can so casually insult someone's faith, their race, or their person, that speaks to deeper social failures. Confronting that requires compassion, education, honest conversation, and zero tolerance for hate. The firing of the Cinnabon employee is the right immediate step, But the incident is more than a headline. It's a reflection of how racism continues to infect everyday interactions and how easily prejudice can reveal itself when someone feels emboldened. The fact that the victims were a Somali Muslim couple is not incidental. Their race, religion, and immigrant identity made them targets. And that has to matter. This isn't just a bad employee having a bad day. It's a glimpse of a deeper structural problem, the persistence of racism, xenophobia, and religious hatred in societies that continue to claim equality and diversity. For better or worse, this episode was caught on video. It reached millions. It forced a corporate response. It sparked outrage, empathy, debate, and yes, funding campaigns for both the victims and the perpetrator. What comes next shouldn't just be statements and